What if one single dam could flip the fate of an entire country? Picture a river that for thousands of years fed civilizations, yet at any moment could turn that generosity into destruction. The Nile, majestic and relentless, flooded Egyptian fields year after year. And in the 20th century, people decided to bring it under control. Today, we will tell the story of the Aswan Dam. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the most interesting part. The Nile, the longest river on the planet, runs through 11 countries and carries water from the African highlands to the Mediterranean Sea. For thousands of years, its floods were a true gift from the heavens for Egyptians. Every summer, the water rose, spilled over the banks, and left behind a layer of fertile black silt that Egyptians called a word that meant life. But nature is almost never convenient or predictable. A flood that was too powerful destroyed crops, swept away villages, and killed livestock. A flood that was too weak left the land dry and people without food. For centuries, Egypt existed in this fragile balance between abundance and famine, with no chance to control its own destiny. By the end of the 19th century, Egypt's population was growing rapidly. The country needed more food, more water, more usable land. The British colonial authorities, who governed Egypt at the time, began seriously discussing the construction of a dam on the Nile to tame the river and direct its waters to where people needed them, not to where nature decided. The first Aswan Dam appeared between 1898 and 1902. The project was created by British engineer William Wilcox with the participation of Benjamin Baker and John Aird. The length of the structure reached 2 kilometers, and at the moment of completion, it was considered the largest masonry dam in the world. The grand opening ceremony took place on the 10th of December 1902, led by the Duke of Connaught. Thousands of Egyptians celebrated, believing their lives would change forever. And it truly did change, but only for a short time. The river proved stronger, and within just a few years it became obvious that one dam was not enough. The dam was raised twice, first between 1907 and 1912, and then between 1929 and 1933. But even after the upgrades, it could only partially hold back the powerful flow. To solve the problem fully, a fundamentally new design was needed. Meanwhile, Egypt was going through enormous political change. In 1952, the revolutionary Gamal Abdel Nasser came to power. He dreamed of making Egypt a modern, strong state, and from the very beginning, he put the construction of a new high dam at the center of his politics. Nasser asked the United States and the United Kingdom for financing. In December 1955, they even agreed to support the project. But soon, everything changed. Egypt bought Soviet weapons through Czechoslovakia, and the West, irritated by Nasser's growing closeness with the USSR, withdrew financing in 1956. Nasser's response shocked the world. He nationalized the Suez Canal, one of the main trade arteries on the planet. This triggered an international crisis. The United Kingdom, France, and Israel united and attacked Egypt. But under pressure from the United States, they had to retreat after just 10 days. Nasser emerged from this clash as a national hero. The Soviet Union came to the rescue. Moscow agreed to finance the construction of the new Aswan High Dam. On the 27th of December 1958, an agreement on Soviet technical assistance was signed in Cairo. So the Cold War directly led to one of the greatest engineering projects of the 20th century. On the 9th of January 1960, Nasser personally pressed the detonator button and 10 tons of explosives blasted apart the rocks near Aswan. Construction began. More than 30,000 Egyptians worked around the clock in 104-degree desert heat, rotating shifts over an entire decade. Soviet engineers played a decisive role in the project. Several thousand of them arrived. Together with Egyptian workers, they literally dug into the earth, laying the foundation for what was meant to become one of the largest hydraulic structures on Earth. The friendship of the two countries was sealed with concrete and steel. There is a little-known detail. The technical design of the dam was first developed not by the Soviets at all, but by West German engineers. They prepared the detailed technical plan. When the West refused financing, Soviet specialists brought the German project to life. The story of this construction is woven from unexpected turns. In 1964, a landmark event took place. Nasser and Nikita Khrushchev together opened the diversion canal for the river. The leaders of the two countries stood side by side and looked at the tamed Nile. Nasser called the dam a symbol of eternal friendship with the Soviet people. According to some accounts, Khrushchev did not hide his emotion that day. On the 15th of January 1971, the Aswan High Dam was officially opened. By that moment, Nasser was no longer alive. He died in 1970. The ceremony was led by the President of Egypt, Anwar Sadat, and the Soviet leader, Nikolai Podgorny. The era of the untamed Nile came to an end. So what is this engineering marvel? The Aswan High Dam stretches for 3,600 meters and rises 111 meters. Its width at the base reaches almost a kilometer. What we see is a real mountain of concrete and rock, a man-made ridge that blocked a great river. For the construction, 17 million cubic meters of rock were excavated. Another 42 million cubic meters came from other building materials. If you stacked all of that into a single cube, its side would exceed 500 meters. The scale truly captures the imagination. 12 turbines were installed on the dam, each with a capacity of 120,000 horsepower. Together, they generate up to 10 billion kilowatt hours per year. When the dam first began operating, it supplied half of all the electricity in Egypt. Entire villages and cities saw electric light for the first time in their history. Behind the dam appeared Lake Nasser, one of the largest artificial reservoirs on the planet. Its length is about 500 kilometers, roughly 360 of them lie in Egypt, and another 140 extend into Sudan. The volume of water in it is about 157 cubic kilometers. Here is a fact that stuns people. The volume of water in Lake Nasser is about 4 times greater than the combined volume of giants like the Hoover Dam in America and the Three Gorges Dam in China put together. One dam in the Egyptian desert holds what the 2 greatest dams in the world cannot fit in total. Annual flooding in Egypt stopped completely. At first, this was seen as a true miracle. Fields no longer drowned in torrents. Villages were not washed away by floodwaters. People did not lose their harvest. Egyptians who had lived for thousands of years by the rhythm of the floods suddenly found themselves in a completely different reality. The Nile stopped dictating its terms. The area of irrigated land after the dam was built grew by about 1/3. Many fields that once received water only during flood season were now irrigated year-round. This made it possible to move from one harvest a year to 2, and sometimes to 3. Egyptians began growing sugarcane, cotton, and rice where there had once been scorched desert. In dry years, when the water level in the Nile drops, the Lake Nasser reservoir gives the country strategic reserves for several years ahead. In 1984, during a brutal African drought, these reserves were what saved Egypt from disaster. According to specialist estimates, without the dam, several million people would have been on the brink of hunger. It would seem like a total victory. But nature does not like being rewritten. Along with the floods, the Nile carried tons of fertile silt into the valley, silt that fertilized fields for thousands of years. Now, all that silt settles on the bottom of Lake Nasser, and the Nile Delta gradually loses nutrients. The soils grow poorer. Before the dam was built, the Nile carried out about 130 million tons of fertile sediment every year. Now, almost all of that volume remains in the reservoir. Egyptian farmers are forced to buy artificial fertilizers, where nature used to renew the land on its own. That is both extra cost and extra strain on the environment. The Nile Delta began to literally disappear. Without new river sediment, the coastline is eroding under the blows of the Mediterranean Sea. Scientists have calculated that up to 50% of the delta area could be swallowed by the sea over the coming decades. The oldest agricultural region in the world found itself under serious threat. The problem of soil salinity became just as acute. When fields are irrigated constantly and are not flushed by a natural flood, salt builds up in the upper layers of soil. Yields fall. Some lands drop out of use entirely. The bitter irony is that the dam, meant to give the land water, in places dries it out from the inside. The ecological consequences also affected fishing. In the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Egypt, fish stocks noticeably declined. Nutrients that the Nile used to carry out supported a rich marine ecosystem. After the dam was built, fishermen who worked near the shore began going farther and farther out. There is one more consequence that people hardly talk about. It is the spread of schistosomiasis, a parasitic disease transmitted through freshwater snails. After a year-round irrigation network was created, the area of water bodies grew sharply, and infection rates in a number of regions of Egypt rose noticeably. The dam changed not only the landscape, but also the country's epidemiological map. There was another dramatic price Egypt paid. Creating the reservoir meant flooding a huge territory where an ancient people lived, the Nubians. This is one of the oldest peoples of Africa, guardians of a unique culture whose roots reach deep into pharaonic times. About 50,000 Egyptian Nubians were forced to leave their native lands. Their villages, fields, and cemeteries went underwater. The Sudanese side suffered too. About 40,000 Nubians from Sudan were resettled into specially built areas. The price of progress was measured in thousands of human lives. The Nubians still remember their lost homeland. Their culture, language, songs, and legends preserve the memory of flooded shores. The second and third generations of resettled Nubians still call themselves people of the Nile, even though they never saw the places where their grandfathers and grandmothers were born. It is a wound of history that does not heal. But there was yet another threat hanging over the world's cultural heritage at that time. The rising waters of Lake Nasser could have swallowed forever the temples built by the great pharaoh Ramses II around 1264 BCE. We are talking about the famous Abu Simbel temples, one of the symbols of ancient Egypt. In 1959, the Egyptian government appealed to UNESCO for help. The organization announced an international campaign to save Nubian monuments. More than 50 countries responded and raised a total of $80 million. Half the sum came from foreign governments, half from international organizations. The Abu Simbel temples were saved in a radical way. They were cut apart. They were literally sawed into gigantic stone blocks weighing up to 30 tons each. Over 4 years, from 1964 to 1968, thousands of workers and engineers from different countries dismantled, transported, and reassembled the colossal statues and temple halls. The temples were moved 200 meters inland and raised 65 meters above the former level. At the same time, they tried to preserve the original orientation to the cardinal directions. Twice a year, on the 22nd of February and the 22nd of October, the first rays of the rising sun still penetrate to the very heart of the temple and light up the figures of the gods. That detail amazes people even today. In total, during the campaign, more than 22 temples and historical sites were relocated. Some of them were gifted to countries that provided the greatest help. That was when the idea of World Cultural Heritage was born, an idea that later became the basis of the UNESCO Convention. The Aswan story gave the world a new way of looking at preserving civilization. The construction of the dam took human lives, and that too is part of the story. Several hundred workers died because of accidents, heat, blasting work, collapses in excavation pits took their toll. Their names did not make it into textbooks, but it was their hands that built this monumental structure. The silent builders of a great project. The dam gave Egypt not only water and electricity, it gave it independence. A country that until 1956 depended on British control of the Suez Canal now gained its own energy and water sovereignty. Nasser called the dam the heart of the nation, and that was not an exaggeration. In the first years after launch, the dam produced about half of all the electricity in Egypt. This made it possible to build new factories, aluminum plants, and processing complexes. The country made a powerful leap into the industrial era. Rural areas where there had never been electricity received light in their homes. Lake Nasser itself became a source of life. Fishing on the reservoir provides work for thousands of people, and the annual catch is measured in tens of thousands of tons. The desert space that before the dam was built had been a scorched plain is now filled with life. It is also important that Lake Nasser is home to the Nile perch, one of the largest freshwater predators on the planet. This giant grows up to 200 kilograms. The lake became a true paradise for fishing enthusiasts from all over the world. Catching a massive fish in the middle of the Egyptian desert, what could be more unexpected? Today, the Aswan High Dam provides about 15% of Egypt's total electricity consumption. That is less than in the 70s, because the country has grown and its needs have increased many times over. And still, the dam continues to operate as a crucial element of the energy system. Can the Aswan Dam be judged in a single, clear way? No. This structure is woven from contradictions like history itself. It saved millions of people from hunger and floods, brought light to cities and villages, and opened a path into modernity for Egypt. And at the same time, it flooded an ancient culture, stripped the river of its old power, and set off a long chain of environmental change. The Aswan High Dam. This is not just concrete and steel. This is a story about how people challenged nature and at the same time paid for overconfidence. A story about how big politics, Soviet engineers, and Egyptian dreams met in one great project. Each of us lives in a world where decisions like this were made and will be made. Subscribe to the channel and write in the comments whether you think this dam was worth its price.